It was a warm day today, wasn't it, Carl?
Yeah.
Yeah, that rascal was warm. It's supposed to be really bad Sunday out here. Uh, they're not difficult ones. And you don't have to worry about times if I come to a question. This interview is being made for the Friends of the Collinsville Historical Museum. It is an effort to collect and preserve the facts and remembrances and events of some of the Collinsville citizens. We hope that the viewer will find it interesting and educational for many years to come. Today is the 10th of August, 1994, and the time is 6:35 in the evening, and I am Arvil Wrigley, and I will be conducting the interview. Carl, would you please start by introducing yourself to us, and please give us your full name.
Oh, my full name. Well, it's Carl Frederick Launhardt. You want me to spell it? It's Launhardt.
Okay. The place and date of your birth, where were you born?
Well, I was born the 12th of June in 1898.
1898. Where were you born? What town? In Collinsville?
In Collinsville. Well, on a farm out here.
On a farm?
Yes.
We'd also like to have the names of each of your parents.
Oh, my parents? Mm-hmm. Well, my father's name was William Launhardt, and my mother's name was Louise.
Louise?
Well, it is German. Louise. Well, anyhow, Louise, that was her name.
What was her maiden name? Before she was married, what was her name? Her maiden name?
Oh, Sebald.
Sebald?
Yes.
Okay. Were your parents born in Collinsville?
Well, no, she was born in Millstadt, Illinois.
And your father?
My father was born out here on the farm. Because it is in 1860 when the Launhardts bought a farm out here on Clay School Road. Mm-hmm. And the farm is about a mile north of Clay School.
Clay School.
Or, I don't know, or Lamaggy Mine.
Lamaggy Mine out in that area.
Yeah.
To the eastern part of the city. Did either of your parents have brothers or sisters still living in Collinsville?
Well, my dad had two brothers, but one died when he was about 8 years old, and the other one, his name was Gottlieb Launhardt. He never did marry, and he made his home out there and with us. Of course, he worked at different places.
Do they still live here in Collinsville?
Well, they're all gone.
They're all gone now. Yeah.
Yes, my parents and I had three brothers and three sisters, and they're all gone.
They're all gone.
So I'm the only one left.
What was your brothers and sisters' names?
Well, my oldest brother was Henry.
Henry?
Launhardt, and then there was William.
William?
And Walter.
Walter.
And, well, my brother Henry was 4 years older than myself, and Bill was 3 years younger than myself, and Walter was 6 years younger, but Walter was the last one of my brothers and sisters to die. Well, my sister, there was only one sister that lived any length of time, and her name was Frida, and she married a farmer from out in Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. What was her married name? Your sister's married name?
Oh, Frida.
Well,
I know that name is.
I know what that's like. She
she married Bierman.
Bierman.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any children?
Yes, I have 3 boys and 2 daughters. My oldest son's name is Donald,
Donald.
and he never did marry. And then my other brother, the second brother, he lives in northern Idaho, and his name was Robert. And
That's a son, right?
yes,
Okay.
and then my youngest. My youngest son is oh, I had to think.
Well, maybe we can come back to it if you.
Yeah.
Your daughters? Did you have daughters too?
What's that?
Did you have any daughters?
Brothers?
Daughters.
Oh, daughters.
Girls?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What was their names? Their first names?
Oh, Irene.
Irene.
She lives in northern Idaho. Oh, not in northern Washington.
Oh.
And the other one lives in Jones. She lives over in Boot Hills in Missouri.
Oh, okay.
Her name is Hendricks. And
can you give us any details about your parents or your family that you consider unique or otherwise significant?
oh well, I don't know. One thing I will say is I was raised in a Christian home,
Mm-hmm.
and because I remember. You want me to talk about what
What you remember about your family?
Well, when I was really the most that I remember is when I was 6 years old. That's the year, they had the World's Fair in St. Louis.
1904 World's Fair?
Yes, and I had an uncle living in Denver, Colorado, and his name was Frederick Seabold, and he got married, and him and his bride, they came to St. Louis, for the World's Fair, and then they spent about a week at our place. So I still remember that.
Do you remember whether or not you got to go to the World's Fair yourself? Being 4 years old, that's pretty young, but do you remember going to the World's Fair in St. Louis?
Well,
You probably did, I guess.
I remember a lot of things. I couldn't just say much about it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a long time ago.
Yes. One of the things, I don't know, do you mind if I
Go
talk
ahead.
a little bit about what? Well, one of the things I really remember real well, and I think that was the same year, I think it was in 1904, that at Christmas time, see, my parents were members, and I'm still a member of Holy Cross Lutheran Church here in Collinsville, and so on Christmas Eve, it was a nice starlit evening, and of course, then there didn't have that was in the horse and buggy days, and my dad hitched the team to an old farm wagon. You remember what farm wagon?
Yes, I remember.
Well, anyhow, so my oldest brother and my sister Frida and myself, we huddled down in a farm wagon, and Dad took us to church, and I still remember that.
Still remember going to church in the farm wagon.
Yes.
I guess that was kind of bitter in the wintertime, wasn't it? And cold.
Well, it was a cold night, yes, but I enjoyed it.
How far did you live from the church? About?
Well, it's just 4 miles.
4 miles?
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool ride on a cold winter evening.
Because And I went to Lutheran school. Well, my brothers and one sister. Of course, I said two of my sisters died in infancy. I don't know if that's a long time ago. So, but anyhow, I think one lived a little over a year, and the other one didn't even live to be a year old.
You mentioned that one of your brothers lived in northern Idaho. Do you know the town he lives in up in northern Idaho?
Oh, that's my son.
Oh, your son.
Yes.
That was your son.
Yeah, he lives in Pinehurst. He works for Sunshine Mining Company.
Oh, it's a silver mine, right?
Yes.
Was there anything else about your family information you'd like to give regarding Collinsville and your family that you can think of?
Well,
if not right now, we can come back to it. But,
well, as I say, we walked past Clay School out there, and because my parents, wanted to send us to Christian school, so we walked morning and evening most of the time. Of course, then there was, well, do you know where the Lutheran Church is in Collinsville here?
Yes, I do.
Well, that building was dedicated in 1915, and up to that time, we had an old there's a frame building, and we had an old German pastor, and I don't think he could have preached an English sermon if he'd have wanted to. And of course, then when he was retirement age anyhow, I guess, as I remember. And then while the church was being built, we met in a hall. Let's see, they call it Temperance Hall, I think it was. That's where the post office is now.
Where the post office is now, yes.
Yes,
that's right.
Were you living in Collinsville then? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember vaguely the building there.
Yes.
And it was just torn down, I think, in the 50s or
yes, I think so.
Something in there.
But anyhow, in 1915, we had church services there for while our church was being built, and then we started having English services. Of course, then there was quite a controversy between the Germans and German-speaking people and the English. And so I still remember that. And so, as I say, we started having that. I'll say that. Well, the pastor, the German pastor's name was von Strohe, and then we got a pastor by the name of Pastor Klein. And of course, when we had Pastor Klein, then we started having English services. But I'd just like to tell you a little bit about Pastor Klein. That when the first bunch of draftees were ready to leave, just a short time before they were ready to leave, they had a doings for them in the Miners Theater, and so the committee got together and they were talking about it, and one of them said, we've invited the mayor and mentioned different ones. One thing we're all about is asking a preacher. We should have had a pastor to say a few words. And so someone said, well, down there sits the preacher from the old Dutch church, where they call us a Dutch church, There sits a man from the old Dutch church. You think it'd be okay to have him to come up here and give a talk? And well, it wouldn't hurt. And so someone went down and got him, and he got up on the stage, and of course I was there, I don't just remember all he said, but anyhow, he started some of the things he said. Well, now, I said there's people here from different nationalities, and some immigrated here from other countries, but we're living in the United States now, and the United States is our country, and it's our Christian duty to support our government, and because we're at war, and so some of the people really, they got to talking to say, well, those Dutch back there, they mustn't be so bad after all. They got a preacher that can give a talk like that. they thought they was.
Yeah, that.
I don't know what I'm talking too much.
No, that's fine. Now, was this the Pastor Klein?
Pastor Klein,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because up in Maryville, it was an altogether different situation there. They had I think his name was Van Gemmingen, and of course I don't know. I was just told about it. But anyhow, it said he had a picture of the Kaiser on his wall, and he had a loaded shotgun sitting there, and he said if anybody dared to take that picture down, he'd let them have it. So they had quite a bit of trouble there.
Yeah, I guess the different nationalities back then. I guess there was a lot of friction there. I'm sure there was. But you were in the military service, and what branch of the service were you in?
Well, I was in the 13th Marines.
In the Marine Corps. Then.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What did you do during the war?
Well, as I say, we landed over there on the 28th of September, but for some reason or other, we were not sent up to the front.
Well, did you, how long, when you went into the Marine, were you drafted in the Marine Corps, or did you enlist?
Oh, I enlisted.
You enlisted?
No, see, because, as I said, you didn't have to register. See, that was after my 20th birthday. And you didn't have to register for the draft till you was 21.
But did you remember anything about the training you had before you went in the Marine Corps?
About what?
About the training you had before you went into the Marine Corps?
Well, I didn't have any military training.
No military training?
No.
Well, they put the uniform on you and gave you a gun, huh?
We went, well, it was on the 7th of July, 1918, that I was sent down to Parris Island, South Carolina. And we had intensive training there for about 2 months, well, July and August. And the first week in September, we were sent up to, now for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the place, but anyhow, a Marine base. It is in Virginia.
Quantico? Quantico, Virginia?
I think it was. And we were thrown in with a bunch of old-timers, and we were sent across. And, of course, when we got over there, as I say, for some reason or other, now, of course, you know how service is. Rumors. You hear rumors of all kinds. But anyhow, what we were told, the French, they wanted us, as replacements. But our high officials wanted to send us, well, there was 2 regiments of Marines, the 11th Regiment and the 13th. I was a member of the 13th. And as I say, of course, if the war lasted any length of time longer, I guess we would have went up to the front, because I still remember several days before the armistice was signed, in the evening or the day before, we were told to be ready to move out the next day, have our equipment lined up, and then we'd stand around for a couple of hours, and then they'd send us back. And that happened for five days. I guess they were waiting, and then when the armistice was signed, then we were split up into smaller groups, and we did guard duty from then on.
Guard duty. Can you tell us what it was like when your outfit landed in Paris? How did the French people accept you? Were they friendly to you?
Well, uh, this may sound strange, but the American soldiers and the French didn't get along at all. They didn't. They didn't have any use for each other. I don't know why, but I think, well, maybe that had something to do with it. You take the Americans, had more money to spend than the French did, and so the French girls, they quite naturally they did everything, to make up with the Americans.
And I guess the French soldiers didn't like that. I guess
They didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but there was hatred between the. Of course, I myself, French didn't bother me, and I didn't bother them, although we did guard duty. But I just want to tell you a couple of things that happened shortly before we were sent back home. See, I had, well, I guess all of them were in with my group, in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
We had signed up for the duration, so we were supposed to be, discharged after. But anyhow, a few days before we left France, I had a day off and I went into town, and I met one of the Marines from the 5th and 6th Regiment of Marines were the ones that really got the toughest, into the toughest battles. Mm-hmm. And this one, I think he was from the 6th Marines, and I still remember, he said, well, buddy, he said, I'll tell you, he said, he had been in service for, I think about 20 years or something like that. He said, buddy, he said, I had my belly full of war, but if they'd want us to stay over here and clean up on these damn frogs, I'd be ready to go. They called the French frogs.
They called the French soldiers frogs.
Yeah. Huh? And this other thing, I was told, I don't know, but anyhow, one of these old, I'm getting ahead of myself. When we were ready to leave over there, and I don't know why, but anyhow, they were sending fresh American troops over there for guard duty. Because, we did guard duty around warehouses, and I guess they still had quite a bit of equipment. So they sent new troops over there. Mm-hmm. And one of these old Marines, he was standing on the street corner smoking a cigarette, and one of these lieutenants from this landed over there, he was a young fellow, I guess, and he walked past this Marine, and the Marine kind of looked up at him and kept puffing away at his cigarette. And so he swung around and said, soldier, said, don't you know the saluting officer when you see one? And he kind of looked up at him and said, well, he said, you see these chevrons on this arm here? He had service chevrons on one arm and wound chevrons on the other arm. He said, you see these chevrons on this arm? Showed him his service chevrons. He had been in, I think, 20 years or something like that. He said, yeah, what of it? Well, he said, you see these chevrons on this arm? He showed him his wound chevrons. Yes, he said, what up? Well, he said, Sonny, run along and tell your mama that you saw a man.
I bet that went over pretty good.
Well, see, there weren't many of the 5th and 6th Marines. They were almost wiped out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess they were in really tough battles in that.
Yeah. And I guess most of them and they were hard-boiled.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They still are today, a lot of them are like that.
Okay.
At the time that you left to go overseas, do you remember saying goodbye to your parents?
Well,
and your family?
Before I enlisted, my oldest brother was drafted, and for some reason or another, I don't know, that's a long time ago, and I don't know what, but anyhow, he got a medical discharge.
Oh.
He wasn't, and then up to that time, my mother, they both. Well, I knew my dad was no use even saying anything to him about enlisting because he was. If I did anything like that, he'd tell me no. But my mother, I told my mother, well, I said, Henry's back home, and I said, you can let one of us go. And she said, well, I'm not going to say any more. So when of course, I was working for LeMay Colt at the time, and I was waiting for a day off. When I got a day off, I didn't tell my parents or didn't tell anybody where I was going. I went into town, and well, they had a place in East St. Louis where they signed up, and then they sent us across to St. Louis, and there's where went through an examination.
How old were you then?
I was 20 years old. See, I was 20 years old on the 12th of June that year, and this was the end of June. And as I don't remember but I remember the day that I was sent down to Parris Island, South Carolina, and that was the 7th of July, 1918.
Okay.
Of course, when I told my dad that I had enlisted, he said, "You can just go back down there and tell them that you can't go." I said, "Dad," I said, "it's too late for that now." I said, I signed up a long time Uncle Sam.
Yeah, so no turning back.
So,
do you remember your service number by any chance?
my what?
Your service number while you were in the Marine Corps?
No, I
don't remember that. Well, that's been a long time ago. I can't hardly expect you to. That's a question I've asked a lot of servicemen, former servicemen, and 99% of them remember. Of course, that's just going back to World War II. World War I was a lot farther off.
I might have the number at home. I don't know.
Yeah. Are there any other World War I veterans living in Collinsville that you know?
That are still living?
Still living and living in Collinsville.
Well, as I say, the only other one is John Perstrui.
Who's this?
Perstrui.
John Perstrui?
Yes. Okay. As I say now, we don't. Well, of course, quite naturally, we gave up. Well, it was about 3 years ago. It was only just a few of us left, and so we just decided it's time to close our books and call it quits. But we still take on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. We go out to one year we go to the Legion, and the other year we go to VFW, and to celebrate.
That's like on Memorial Day and Veterans Day and those sort of things.
Yes.
I see.
But as I say now, well, John Perstrui, I think it's about, at least 2 years that I did, because his wife was, well, now I think she's they finally put her in a nursing home, but anyhow, she was in pretty bad health, so he didn't come to any of our meetings. And of course the auxiliary, the ladies auxiliary, well, the last 4 or 5 years that we, the World War I veterans that had in meetings, we would meet out at the VFW hall. We had arrangements to meet with them, and we'd have our business meeting, and the ladies auxiliary, they would have a business meeting too. And then we'd get together and we'd play bingo. Okay. But now I think there's maybe about five or six of the ladies that are still living. So most of us are gone.
Yeah. Do you or did you have any hobbies during your lifetime that?
Well, I did all kind of work in my lifetime. I spent most of my time on the farm. And I couldn't say that
No specific hobby though,
I don't
like stamp collecting or something like that.
But what?
Like stamp collecting, you had no
Oh,
hobbies or anything
no.
like that. Another question I have is, do you remember your first girlfriend?
My first girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going with a girl from St. Louis. Her name was Hilda Wolters. And I don't know, for some reason or other, we broke up. And I was 20, my wife and I were married in 1929. And my wife, well, it'll be 7 years in September that she died. So we lived together for just about, well, it's going on to 58 years.
58 years. Mm-hmm.
And so we had a...
Can you tell us anything about your wedding day and when it was, where it was, and how old you were, and where you lived after you got married?
Where I lived?
Yeah, where you lived and when you got married, or something about your wedding day that you might recall that would be interesting, or...
Oh, well, when I got back, well, before I enlisted, I was working for the Lemaggy Coal Company, and then when I got back, shortly after that, I worked for a filling station company, or service, whatever you want to call it. I was in Decatur and Bloomington and Edwardsville. And then in 1927, my oldest brother was at home, on the farm, and he left, and I don't know, for some reason or other, well, I don't like to go into the details about that, but anyhow, my dad was still living, but my dad he wasn't in very good health and like that, so I came home and I took over the farm. And then my wife, well, her name was Lena Lorenz.
Lorenz?
I don't know, did you live in Collinsville here?
Yes, I was born in Collinsville, and so I'm familiar with the Lorenz name.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, you remember the popcorn wagon that's near the Minor Theater?
Okay, that's on Clinton and Main and Clinton Street there? Yeah.
Yes.
I remember.
Well, that was my wife's dad.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Well, I'll be darned. That's interesting. That's
yeah.
Interesting. I remember that popcorn wagon sat there for years and years and years.
Well, I met, of course, Lena was about 10 years, I think I might as well say in round figures, she was 10 years younger than myself. And, of course, for the past 40 years that she was living, she had asthma so bad, and she was in and out of the hospital time and again.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, coming back to, there's just one thing I'd like to tell you about when it was, we were doing guard duty, and we were stationed right along a railroad, and they had to, for the one time, there's some German war prisoners were working on this railroad. And so us fellows, we went out there, and of course one thing we had fun doing was see I don't know, anyhow, we were issued tobacco, the old pulled arm.
Yes.
And of course, I was smoking cigarettes then, and if we could buy tailor-made cigarettes, so we didn't care about rolling around. But anyhow, we had fun, throwing the tobacco sacks to these German prisoners. And they had an officer, and he could speak good English.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling about when the United States, when the soldiers over there heard, the German soldiers heard that the United States had declared war, they were really upset about that. But they were told then by the high officials, "Oh, don't worry about that. It'll take a long time for the United States to train soldiers to send over here. You don't have to worry about that at all." But it wasn't too long after that they saw uh, people in different uniforms, and they figured, and then the high officials tried to tell them all this. Those ain't Americans. The Americans sent some uniforms over here, and those are French or English. But they said it didn't take very long. They found out that wasn't the case. Because
they were Americans.
Said before that they would have days of truce every now and then when they wouldn't fire, the French and German wouldn't even shoot at each other. They would wash their clothes and like that. But they said when the Americans got over there, all the Americans wanted to do is fight and get it over with.
Get it over with.
And I think they were right about that. But as I say now, after it was all over, well, you'd see a bunch of German prisoners. You could tell by all you'd have to do is look at them. You could tell whether they were under French
or German either,
or under Americans. Because the Americans, they just treated them like they would any just a working crew, and they got along real good together.
The French treated them a little differently, huh?
Yeah.
I see.
Because like this German officer, he said the Americans, all they wanted to do is fight and get it over with. Well,
yeah. They didn't care. They didn't have no one-day truces or anything like that.
No. Said if anyone dared to stick their head above the trench, they got it blown off.
Who was the first member of your family to come to Collinsville to live? Was that your father, or was that your grandfather, great-grandfather?
My great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather?
They came over from Germany in 1838, and they settled on a farm near Millstadt.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1860, they came up and they bought the farm that's, well, it's still. Of course, now I sold it to my oldest son,
mm-hmm.
but it's been in the family ever since. So my dad was born out there on the farm,
mm-hmm.
and my other grandfather, Sebald, I don't even offhand I don't even know his name now, but anyhow he died before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, he came with this. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about him, just to tell you how different things were in those days and now. He came over. He was orphaned when he was still a little boy, and I think his grandmother or someone raised him. And he was he was in his early 20s. He came over to the United States, and he came to St. Louis. And he met up with some Lutheran school teachers, and they told him that I guess he was looking, trying to get a good job. So they told him that they needed a teacher at Millstadt, or a school at Millstadt. So he took private instructions for a while. That's what my mother told me about that. I don't know how. But anyhow, he took private instructions for a while, and then he was sent to Millstadt, and he was a head teacher there.
Well,
how different that is now.
And that was somewhere in the 1830s and 40s in there?
Oh, it is.
Or maybe earlier than that, huh?
No, it would have been later than that. Oh,
50s, maybe 1850s?
It's maybe the 1860s or something.
1860s?
Somewhere along there.
Uh-huh. Okay. Your father was like you said earlier, your father was a farmer.
Yeah.
Did he raise any specific crops here in Collinsville? Did he just raise crops to feed his animals? And
Well, yes.
did he sell wheat or corn or anything like that?
Well, he was a farmer, but well, even I remember when we were kids, my mother made, they had cows,
Yeah.
and so she made butter, and they sold butter, and then later on, well, that was before I don't know just what year, but anyhow, they had the East End Dairy in town here,
Yes.
and they were selling milk to the East End Dairy.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I got married, I took over the milk cows and all. And well, I even after several years, I got a job as hauling milk. Picking up
milk.
picking up milk.
Mm-hmm.
Which was
And you brought that in town to the East End Dairy to
yes.
be processed. I see.
So there was all this. Well, I'll say this: you see, when we got married, that was in '29. That's when they had the big stock market crash.
Yeah.
And then we had several years, really.
Oh, really tough times.
Really tough years.
I remember those times.
But there was always. Well, I thank the good Lord for that. There was always when I thought I didn't know how I was going to make it anymore, and then always something turned up. Because one of the first things that turned up, a neighbor of ours, there was a Hankey family. They had a fruit farm close, between our place and Clay School.
Mm-hmm.
And Elmer Hankey, he had then the government had a farm program, and then farmers, they were paid say that like wheat and things like that, especially wheat. If they would cut down and sign up that they were going to plant so many acres, and then a farm reporter, he had to go out in the fall of the year and he had to measure the ground. So Elmer Hankey came over and he asked me whether I'd be interested in. He said he needed a helper, and I said okay. And it wasn't very long after that at all. He got a job in St. Louis, and I got a job then as. Well, he told me that he was going to quit. And he told me to go to Edwardsville, and so I got a job as farm reporter, and I had that for a number of years.
Oh,
and then during World War II days, things worked out that I got a job as mail carrier, and I was rural mail carrier there for several years. So I did all kinds of things for my lifetime.
You had a variety of occupations, and farmer, coal miner, in the military, and post office, and fruit farm. And
when my oldest son, he was in service, and when he came home, he wanted a farm, and I said there wasn't room for both of us. I turned the farm over to him, and I got a job then with Unit 10 school system.
Oh, I see.
I worked for them for 10 years.
I see.
So, as I say, I did all kinds of things in my lifetime.
When your son took over the farm, did you move to Collinsville then, or did you stay on the farm also?
Well, when I turned my farm over to my son, we moved out to Hollywood Heights.
Oh, okay.
And we lived there for about 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
And my son built a new, when when we moved, there was an old ramshackle house we had, and him and my youngest son lived in a trailer, and then he built a new home, and he was working for he's working in East St. Louis, and he was working shift work. And the first, after he built a new, my youngest son got married, and Don was living there by himself. And the first 10 years that he was living there, they broke in on him when they guess someone knew, just when he was working, when he'd worked the midnight shift. They broke in on him they broke in on him 6 times in 10 years. And he called up out there. We were living in Hollywood Heights, and I wasn't even in the house when he called. He called me. He said, "Mom, they broke in last night again. I can't take it anymore. Won't you and Dad come back out here?" And she said, "Well, sure, So we moved back out there.
Back out on the farm, huh?
Yes.
Oh.
And, I was living there, and it was 2 years ago in May that I got my youngest son and his wife. They got me in over here,
at the high rise. Yeah.
At the high rise.
I see. Do you remember any of the stores that you did shopping at in Collinsville, such as grocery stores, hardware stores, or furniture stores, clothing stores? Do you remember places that you patronized?
See, when we were going to school, they were, it was Yates and Brosius, and, let's see, there were only a couple of stores in town, There was no stores out in the country at all.
Yeah, Yates Ambrosius, was that before Silverblooms, I believe, wasn't it?
Let's see, who's there now? Well, it's on Main and...
It was on Main and... I'm thinking of Clinton?
No, it's... The others.
It was on West Main, I think. First block of West Main.
Clinton, that's near the Miners Theater.
Yes, that's right there. Yeah.
Morrison. South Morrison.
Morrison. Oh, yeah, Morrison, yeah. That's right. Yeah, Morrison Avenue. Okay.
Well, there's Yates and Bruce, and then there was Kraft. Well, Kraft's store was on Main and Vandalia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let's see, I think, let's remember, there was one other little store in town. But anyhow, it's only a few stores,
Yeah.
where we did our grocery shopping.
Yeah. The grocery stores, you don't remember any specific grocery store where you dealt all the time on the old grocery stores?
Well, this one, no, I don't know. You mean who? Well, now gosh, there's so many. I really don't know. Just when it was for Nick.
What did you do for amusement in the early years when you were not at the farm and to amuse yourself? Did you get involved in any sports or anything like that? Or?
Oh, not a great deal, no. Because I was usually, when I was farming, as I say, I always had a job besides farming, and I was just too doggone busy
to amuse yourself. You got to keep working all the time.
Yeah.
Did your family own an automobile? Your father, did he ever own an automobile?
Well, the first car that when we were kids, when I was a kid, there was hardly any. I mean, there was only a very few. And the first automobile that was bought in our neighborhood was Charlie Maurer. He was connected with a state bank.
Yes.
At that time. And then Hankies, they bought a car, and I was 14 years old before I ever got a ride in an automobile.
Do you remember what kind of car did you ride in? Do you remember that?
I don't just remember what the name of the, but anyhow, in 1918, then, well, it was, it was the year I enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest brother and I, we bought a Model T Ford. That was in February 1918.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Was that a used car or a new car?
A new car, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it cost us a little over $500.
$500. Well, those were way back days. Do you recall any of Collinsville's early sports teams? Any baseball teams or?
Oh well, there's
in town here. At that
they
time?
were a bunch of the Collinsville Maroons, and but they were ball teams. Well, there was one in our neighborhood, and I don't know. This is named Crop. Do you remember any of the crops or not?
KROPP, I believe, or
yeah. Well, see, they owned the farm. Well, there were two Crop brothers that have farms joining out there, Henry Crop and Jake Crop, and they had on their farm they had for a few years they had a ball diamond there. I don't know just what the name of the team was, but anyhow, there was just a bunch of farmers out there. So they were a number of different ball teams.
Would they come out and play ball on the weekends there then?
Oh yeah,
or on Saturdays, Sundays, like that.
Yeah.
What schools did you attend in Collinsville, and when did you attend school?
Well, as I say, we went to Holy Cross Lutheran School.
Oh, you went to school at you.
Yes,
right. Yeah.
And I was confirmed in 1912, and that was the end of schooling for me. I've been in a school of hard knocks and experience ever since then.
Did you participate in any school activities such as like band or government or any of their sports?
No,
school.
Really not, because as I say, we had to walk to school in the morning and walk home in the evening, and that was about. And they were quite in our neighborhood there was a couple of better farms and crops and acres, and so there was, and we, as I say, we would walk to school, and then when we got down to there's a road, east past Lemaggy, the old Lemaggy coal mine. There were several farmers there that sent their kids. So that by the time we'd get down to Hinesville, there was quite a few of us. Of course,
did you all walk to school then?
Yeah.
How far did you go to school when you were a kid?
Well, as I say, it's just 4 miles from our house to the school.
That's a long walk every day. Well, you had to go back at night too, wasn't it? Yeah. That's a long walk.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
We didn't seem to mind it.
Yeah. What do you remember of your experiences in Collinsville schools that impressed you the most?
The what?
What do you remember about school that impressed you the most?
Oh, I don't know.
Did you like any specific subject, like history, geography, or mathematics, or
Well, I
spelling?
don't know. We just, of course, now when we went to school, we had German in the morning and English in the afternoon, so
Mm-hmm.
we were kept pretty busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one other thing that I remember something about that I'd like to tell you is
Okay.
I guess you heard about this lynching when they
Oh, yes.
lynched that
The Prager lynching?
Prager.
Yes.
Well, that evening, my brother and I, we were in town, and we saw when the first, well, I'll tell you how it come about that they picked up Prager. There was a bunch of fellows that had met. They were up on Play Street there, and they were talking about some of these pro-Germans. Well, there were some of the Germans, they just had too doggone big a mouth, They were,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going to go out and get some of them, and they were talking about that. And this Prager, he was working in, I think he was living. He must have been living in Collinsville, but anyhow, he worked in in Maryville mine, and it was one of the fellows in this bunch that was talking about going out and getting some of these pro-Germans. And Prager happened to come in on the interurban car, and he got off there on Vandalia and Play and
Vandalia.
Play and Vandalia. And this fellow happened to spy him, and he had it in for Prager for some reason or other. And he said, "Well, there goes one of those so pro-Germans now. Well, let's get him." So they went and they got a hold of Prager, and they started marching him down the street. And because I still remember that, because my brother and I, we were in town, and we saw when this first mob had him, and right, right down here on the, uh, 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 well, I think it was, where the funeral home, the Schiphol.
Yes.
Well, it was out there. But anyhow, they had a motorcycle. The council police, they didn't know what to do about it. But they had a motorcycle cop. His name was Fred Frost.
Mm-hmm.
And Frost happened to be out of town, and he came into town and he wanted to know what was going on. And so they told him, and he rode his motorcycle up as close as he could, and he walked in there and he grabbed a hold of Prager, and he said, "I'm taking this man in, and the rest of you guys get the heck out of here." And they disbanded. As I say now, my brother and I, we saw that, but then we went on because we walked. We were walking, and this was around 10 o'clock at night, and so anyhow, Fred Frost, he took Prager up and put him in the council jail. And now what caused the council of police to do that? I still I still say about that. To me, it was a dumb thing that they did, because they started down Main Street. Then they had the old-fashioned saloons.
Yeah.
And closing time was 11 o'clock, and it was about 10:30, somewhere along there. Anyhow, it was after 10 o'clock. And so there was one bunch that were in a saloon there, and it's one of the first saloons they closed. And so they got out on the street, and they said, "Well, what the heck? What's going on here? Why in the heck are we thrown out before closing time?" And someone said, "Well, it's on account of so Germans." And they said, "Well, and Well, I knew. Oh, I wasn't. Well, but I knew the ringleader. I knew him by name. But anyhow, he uh, he said, "Well, where the heck is he?" Oh, they got him up here in the council jail. Uh, and well, they had it in the jail was in a basement of
For the
city hall.
there. Mm-hmm.
And so they went up. They said, "Oh, let's go and get him." So they went up there, and the mayor was there, and the chief of police, and all, and they demanded that they turn Prager over to him. And they said, "Well, he's not here." Well, where is he? Well, he's not here. So they demanded to go in and see for themselves whether he was whether he wasn't. But they had taken him out of the jail and they had hit him in the boiler room. And one of the fellows happened to spy him. So so he called the others and they got a hold of Prager and they took him out. And I mean, now why the council police, why they couldn't, it seemed to me like they could have done something about that.
I've wondered about that myself a lot.
But I mean, well, it's a dumb thing, to close the saloons because the guys were in the saloons, so they didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, they just made them mad.
They were just doing it. So they started, and they marched Prager down to the top of
Samus Road there.
Cemetery, and there was a tree there, a limb extending out, and they got a hold of a rope, and they hung Prager.
Yeah.
Now, as far as I know, of course, I don't know, but Prager was a German citizen. I think he had come over to this country. But outside of that, I don't think there was any. He wasn't an agitator or anything like that. But I mean, but anyhow, but this mob, and then when they marched him down the street, and then they hung him, and so the next morning, because I still remember that. Well, we didn't know anything. As I say, my brother and I, we didn't know what had happened, but we heard, that they had taken Prager out and lynched him. And people were talking in the council, they thought they'd done a big thing, and the state officials came in, and they arrested, one of the, I think, if I got the name right, Regal.
Regal?
Fellow by the name of Regal was one of the ringleaders. And anyhow, there was 4 or 5 of them. They arrested them. And they in just a short time after that, they had a trial, and they exonerated them.
Let them go.
Yeah. But one thing it did do, it put a stop to this thing, getting out and getting these pro-Germans.
Yeah, they should. That left a black mark on Collinsville. That did. That certainly did. Do you remember what your first job was?
Who?
Your first job was?
My first job?
First job. And
well,
how old were you when you got your first job, other than working on the family farm?
Well, I did work as a farmhand for a couple of years, and then the first public job I got was for the canning factory here.
Factory.
In Falls year, and but I only worked there a very short time because my oldest brother Henry, he was working for the Maggie Coal Company, on top, the yard man or whatever you want to call it, and he got me a job there.
Okay.
So I'd say when they worked for the ketchup factory for oh, maybe a month or 6 weeks, something like
What
that.
did you do at the ketchup factory?
Well, I was working out on the docks, you know,
Handling tomatoes and
unloading
stuff?
tomatoes and like that. And if you worked on the outside on the docks where you had to handle bushel boxes of tomatoes, get 17 cents an hour. And if you worked indoors, you only got 15.
Hmm. That was because of weather, I guess, most likely.
So, I mean, it was really a lot of difference. And then, as I say, then my brother Henry got me a job at the Maggie Coal Company. Of course, I was working on top.
When you worked at the canning factory, you remember smelling the ketchup cooking? How you used to could smell that all over town, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember myself, all these trucks lined up with tomatoes,
Mm-hmm.
and you were helping unload the
Yeah.
trucks onto the dock there. Mm-hmm. Well, what did you do at the Monkey Mine when you started there then?
Well, you know, then they were loading cars, and I was, they had one fellow that uh, he would block, and they had one fellow, you know, to move the cars, you know, because when they had a fellow, you know, they had a couple of fellows, you know, and when they were loading cars, they would pile the coal up and like that. And
do you mean you were loading railroad cars or
yeah, railroad
cars? I see.
And my job was to move those cars when they needed moving.
So you worked on the top side of the mine or not down in the mine?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I see.
No, I worked for LeMaggie for, well, altogether, I think about 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Was this after World War I or?
Well, it was in 1917 when or it was before, or was it 60? Anyhow, I had a job there before the United States declared war, and we were getting $2.36 for an 8-hour day.
Oh, that was big, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then you know when the war broke out, well then they started raising the wages. And before I enlisted, I was making $5 a day,
mm-hmm.
and then as I say, I worked there a short time after I got back, and then I got a job with this filling station company.
What was your most memorable event related to your work? Anything that you can remember that might be of historic nature about working at Launhardt coal mine? Any
Well,
specific thing?
really, I don't remember anything really worthwhile.
Yeah, that's been a while back, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Can you name some of the people in council that you might have worked with?
That what?
Some of the people that you worked with from Collinsville?
Well, so let's see now.
About the canning factory, did you remember who you worked with at the canning factory?
No, I don't remember.
That was too short a time there.
You take the Maggie Coal Company, well, there was several of the crop men that were working there, and then Ed Hinkey. Well, Ed Hinkey was my age, and he was working on top. And Petters, and well, there was some of the Richter's family too. Well, the Richters, you know, they were neighbors of ours. Well, I remember them.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know.
How about the post office? when you worked at the post office. You remember anyone you worked with there at the post office?
Well, yes, I remember.
Who was the postmaster at that time?
Oh, I think wasn't it Libby?
Libby? There was a Libby, yes, the postmaster. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Well, Al Skeef was the one that got me a job
at the post office.
He was, he was a rural mail carrier, and it is at Christmas time. Then, you know, at Christmas they would give the rural carrier would let him hire someone a helper for a few days. So Steve asked me whether I would, and then after Christmas, then he said he didn't have a substitute carrier, and he asked me whether I want to work for him as a sub. And so I said, well, yeah, suited me. And in February, he got down, well, he was part owner of this monument works out here
on Vandalia?
Yes. And in February, he got sick, and he was in the hospital for a while. And then well, anyhow, he wasn't in. So I carried mail all through September, and at the end of September, he called, or February, I mean, not September. In February, there was. And he called me in, and he said, well, he said that he could go back to work, but he said he would like to take a little extra time off. And he asked me whether that would carry for another month. And I said, well, sure. I said, you want me to? And so I carried through March, and the end of March, he called me in again. And he said, say, he said, I'd just like to take another month off. Because he had the monument works there anyhow. And I said, okay. And so nobody, postmaster, nobody said anything to me about it. And then I worked another month for him, and then he called me in again. You know? And then the government got on him.
Oh,
they wanted to know what was wrong. And he said the headquarters said they want to know every couple of days what I'm doing, or they just take the job and stick it up.
No, he quit, then you got the job, huh?
Then I get the job.
Oh, that was good, yeah. Or do you know where any of these people are now? Are they still living yet, or?
Oh, just about, as far as I know, all the old timers I grew up with and I worked with and like that, they're all gone.
All gone now.
It's just one family, the Hankey. Did you know any of them?
Yes. Truth of the fact is, there's some sure-tail relation of the Hankey family and the Wrigley family.
Well, anyhow, they moved to St. Louis. Now, of course, now in the last year or so, I didn't hear any more about it. But anyhow, it was two of the Hankey daughters, three, that were older than myself. And one of them, Marie, she married a fellow by the name of Filipiak.
Yeah.
And now she was about a year older than myself, and she might. I didn't hear anything from them. She might be living yet. I don't know. But the two oldest daughters, and Ed, they all died. Now, whether the others might, but I mean, with the other families, or take like the Fetter families, there were three Fetter families. Well, two of them lived. Well, the one, Charlie Fetters, they went to school in Troy, and Herman Fitters, they went to, but all of those old ones are gone, and the younger ones,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know them if I saw.
Do you belong to, or have you belonged to any church or civic organizations?
Well,
Well, at the Lutheran church, you belonged to that, I guess.
oh well, yes. Well, of course we had well, I think that's still in existence. The Walter League was organized when I was just a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and I was one of the first members of that. And I've been more or less active in a Lutheran church all my life.
Mm-hmm. And this veterans organization, you're semi-active in that. It just comes about every once or twice a year you get involved with the American Legion or the W.
Yeah.
I see. Can you give any specific examples of what some of the people that you may have been friends with when you were working back then? That do you know any of what they'd done or what their names were? Neighbors or?
Well, as I say, there was the Yankees and the Acres and Crops and the Luckman. And well, at one time I knew just about every farmer.
Not being a mailman, I guess you probably knew everybody out there in the country, but that's been a while back, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But, which church or civic organization do you feel that has the greatest impact on Collinsville, and why?
I don't know.
That's kind of a tough one, I guess.
Yeah. Let's say
That's there.
I really.
Well, could you tell us of your earliest recollections of Collinsville? What was the earliest thing that you remember about Collinsville?
Well, I remember when Main Street was just a dirt road.
Dirt road. Do you remember when the streetcars came in?
Well, gosh, I don't know. There was
Must have been in a teens somewhere.
that was way back there too.
Yeah. And of course, the cars. We went through the cars. Do you remember the first automobile dealership in town? Place that sold cars. Who that might have been?
Well, I don't know. It seems to me like Bitzers
Bitzers.
were.
Yeah. That's probably right. I think it probably was Bitzer, because he was a livery stable and a car dealership both at one time. That was probably one of the very first ones. I'm not sure if they were the first.
Well, now let's see. No.
It was McClanahan, a Ford agency.
Let's see, McClanahan. I think McClanahan. I'm pretty sure McClanahan's were. Well, I'm pretty sure that I said we bought that was McClanahan's that
you
my brother and I bought it. Yeah, McClanahan's. They were I think they were probably
one of the first then.
I think they were probably one of the first ones.
Oh, I don't myself. I don't remember a great deal about it, but maybe you remember. If I remember right, McClanahan was a Ford agency, and these Model T Fords used to be shipped to him in a crate, and they were assembled there
Yeah.
at that building. and they had an upper level where they assembled part of the cars there, and then they brought them down this elevator in the building. Remember that?
Well, yeah, I remember a little about that.
Yeah, they used to. They were not totally assembled there, but in part.
Yeah.
They were uncrated, I think, and but they might have been. Thought possibly it might have been something you remembered about that particular
Well,
thing.
I don't remember too much about that.
Yeah, that's been a long time ago too.
Yeah. But now that you mentioned, I mean, the McClanahans, I knew them.
Yeah. There's a well-known family here.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of the Miners Theaters, or any of the movies, or the movie stars, or anything?
No, I don't.
Do you remember Miners Theater being constructed?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember watching that?
Yeah. Because, see, you know, I was working for the Maggie Coal Company when a miners theater was organized, and we even had stock in it.
Yeah. You used to have to, wasn't so much came off of each car of coal that you loaded went to funding the building construction of the Miners Theater? Wasn't there a, didn't it cost the miners? The miners paid for this, I know.
Yeah, I think so.
And I never did get that straight as to how much that cost them, but I knew something was deducted from their pay.
Yeah, but how much or was
I can't remember what that was. There's not many around that can remember either.
No.
Do you remember any of the movies there? Did you go to see any of the movies, or any of the movie stars that might have came in there?
Well, I couldn't. I don't think I could name any of them. I remember some of the shows that we saw.
Yeah.
It is real interesting. In days.
Do you remember any other theaters of entertainment in Collinsville? Any place else where they had entertainment? How about the Collinsville Park Ballroom?
Oh.
Way out on Hesperia, way down at the end of Hesperia Street there.
Oh, yeah.
It was gone. Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, we had our school picnics there.
School picnics? Well, so did I when I was little.
Yeah, that's quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
But who the owners were like that?
Do you remember, and I vaguely remember this, but they used to have a bandstand there and a lot of trees. I remember there's a lot of shade there.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we had my school picnics when I was in, I think, up to about the 4th or 5th grade anyway. And we had school picnics there. And they used to have a lot of these bands that come from all over played there. You don't remember any of those, do you?
No.
Yeah.
Not too much.
Yeah,
you know, they had a bowling alley there in Council Park.
Yeah, they had a bowling alley one time.
Then, you know, they had someone, you know, to set up the pins and like that.
Yeah.
So, my brother Henry and I, we worked there a number of times setting up pins.
Setting pins in the bowling alley there in Collinsville Park. Oh, I'll be done.
I remember that.
Yeah, I vaguely remember the bowling alleys. Did they have and wasn't there a skating ring there at one time? Roller skating ring? Didn't they have that in there at one time?
Well, I guess they did.
I think when the just before all the big bands came in there, they used to have a roller skating ring. Boy, I was little then myself, and I thought maybe you might have remembered something about that.
I don't remember much of that.
Uh, what do you remember about life in Collinsville during World War II?
Hmm.
What was it like here at home?
Hmm.
With the food rationing, gas rationing, and that sort of thing. Do you remember anything about that?
Well, I really couldn't. I remember
Mm-hmm.
things going on, but to really mention anything in particular,
You kind of forgotten what happened on the home front then, I guess.
yeah.
Apparently, there's a lot of people that forgot what they went on the home front. What about can you tell us any memories of the dress factory? Remember when the dress factory used to
Oh,
be
yeah.
operating down on West Main?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any memories of that, or did you know anyone who worked there? Or?
Oh, I knew some that worked there, but right offhand, I don't even remember. One trouble I have is remembering names.
Names. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, that was a big thing in the Collinsville.
um, what is your favorite part of Collinsville, and why is it a favorite part? Do you have
Mm-hmm.
something you remember? Do you remember something you're young from Collinsville that you liked the most? Was it the Collinsville Park or the downtown area? Or?
Well, let's see, Collinsville Park's where we had our school picnics,
Mm-hmm.
and then my brother and I, we went there if they'd have something special doing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some of the bands, but the names I wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to remember some of those things. I understand. Um, what kind of changes have you seen Collinsville undergo since your earliest recollection? What changes have you noticed in Collinsville as being significant?
Well,
For the streetcars, I guess, would be the one.
yeah. But I mean, of course, that was quite a bit later, when they start building, when different stores and like that they came in, and
It's mostly you can remember that it got bigger. The city of Collinsville got bigger.
I still remember. Of course, that was way back in the Yates and Brocious. That one year they had, I don't know, they had some special doings of some kind, and they had a picture of a mule in the showcase, and they had some kind of a contest on that, and so one lady, of course, I don't remember just who that was, but anyhow, she wrote up a writing on this, Well, it's on that mule they had on there. What's wrong with the mule? And so she wrote up a writing on that. Uh, about this mule. One day he went to Yates and Bruce's store. He never was in there before. He bought a suit and he tried on a hat. He tried on a little this and that, and because he tried all kinds of things, and he couldn't find a cause to kick, and so the stubborn mule was sick, and she won first prize.
But
couldn't find a cause to kick, so the stubborn mule was sick.
Are you pleased with the changes that were have been made in Collinsville, or you think it's better now or worse than it was? Or
Well, I don't know. I couldn't say it's any better because, well, talking about that, uh, years back, uh, well, when we were kids and when we were growing up, I mean, we felt safe any place in Collinsville. And I remember well, when we got, when my wife and I got married and when the kids were growing up, shoot, we never thought about locking the door out there on our home. And gosh, now,
yeah,
now there's nothing safe anymore.
So even I remember those times too.
So I mean, in that way, things have changed. Of course, way back there was several times we had well, I can't even think of the names now, but some of the notorious people, you know.
Oh yes, there used to be a lot of bootlickers in town, and a few gangsters too, I think, but I can't remember their names either, to tell you the truth. If someone was to ask you to describe what it is like to live in Collinsville, how would you answer them?
Well, I would say it was a good place to live.
It's what?
It was a good place.
Good place to live. What do you think it'll be like 25 years from now?
Oh, that's a pretty tough question. No, well, that's like, you know, I never did think that I would leave the farm, but now, as I say, 2 years in May that I moved in here, you know, the high rise, as I call it, and I really like it there. I mean, I'm getting along. Well, I don't think that I've got any enemies there.
Oh, I think I know a lady who lives over there too, and she's well happy, well pleased with it.
I mean, I think it was about as good a thing as could have happened to me. Because, I could take like my youngest daughter, you know, where they live at, they bought a farm near Kabul in Missouri, over there in the Ozarks.
Yeah.
And they would they said I could come there and live with them if I wanted, but I don't think it would work out too good.
Yeah.
I get along good with them.
Well, it's a nice spot here, really.
And
is there anything else related to your life or Collinsville's history that you would like to share with us? We realize that our questions are by no means comprehensive, and we have maybe missed some important points that you would like to share, like your happiest moment or your most moving moment. And if you have any memories like that, would you like to share them with us now?
See, as I say, I always liked Collinsville, and I was happy here, and but anything, any special things I couldn't. I think Collinsville was a good place.
For a small town, I guess it's okay, huh? Well, I'd like to thank you, Carl.
Hello.
Shake your hand. It was a pleasure doing this interview with you. And that's the end of the interview.
Okay.
And a copy of this will be stored in the Council Museum.
Oh, is that
And,
so?
yeah, it'll be stored there at the museum. That's where it'll be. And I will, after we get the tape labeled and everything, I'm going to bring it back up here.
Oh,
And Al will let you see it on that telephone up there. And you'll be able to see it.
well, as I say, I think Collinsville's a good place to live.
Yeah, yeah. It's about, I guess it's about as good as any of the rest of them anyway. Well,